We are up to this brisa. So let's have a look at this brisa. Vitani Rav Idi Bar Avin ben Ezika de Vekarna. The discussion that we are in middle of is as follows. Oh, 1 second. Give me 1 second. So we had a discussion of machlokes between Rabbi Shua ben Korcha and the Rabbanon. Rabbanon hold that the two Eidim have to see the same Ma'isa. So they both have to see Reuven borrow $100,000 from Shimon. Rabbi Shua ben Korcha said, no, it's enough if one sees Reuven borrow $100,000 from Shimon on Sunday. If the other Eid saw a different halva of Reuven borrowing $100,000 from Shimon on Monday, that's good enough to combine these Eidus to be mechayev Reuven at least $100,000. So that was a machlokes. And about that machlokes, Ula said that we paskin like Rabbi Shua ben Korcha by karkois, which would indicate that by karkois the Rabbanon argue. Thank you so much. Rabbanon argue on Rabbi Shua ben Korcha. So let's think about this for a minute. What would be the difference in kark metalton? Pretty simple. Metalton is this aid is saying Eidus on halva that occurred on Sunday. This aid is saying Eidus on halva that occurred on Monday. They're talking about two completely different things. But by karkois, one aid is saying I saw chazak at this time. The other one is saying I saw chazak at that time. But we're both at least testifying on the same piece of karka that belongs to Reuven. So therefore, there's a svar by karkois to argue that their two eidim testifying at two different times should combine. So therefore, Ula paskin like Rabbi Shua ben Korcha by karkois, even though according to Ula the Rabbanon argue. So the Gemara challenged Ula by quoting Abaye challenged Ula by quoting Rabbi Abba Arafuna, who said that Moedim Chachamim Rabbi Shua ben Korcha ve'edus karka. So in fact, the Chachamim don't argue with Rabbi Shua ben Korcha by karka; they only argue by metalton. The second kasha was from a brisa. But Tani Ravidi bar Avin ben Ezikin Dvei he learned in a brisa in the Meseches Nezikin of Karna, and this is what he said there: Moedim Chachamim Rabbi Shua ben Korcha be'edus bechor ube'edus karka ube'edus chazaka. So our kasha is from edus karka. You see that the Chachamim and Moedim Rabbi Shua ben Korcha by karka, meaning they're not arguing there. Ula paskin like Rabbi Shua ben Korcha by karka, so it means he altered their button are arguing there. That was the kasha, and the Gemara answered Gavra Agavra Karamus. You can't ask a kasha from Amayroyim on Ula because Marsav are plea. Rabbi Shua ben Ula Kadol, the Rabbanan argue on Rabbi Shua ben Korcha by karka, and he paskins like like Rabbi Shua ben Korcha. Marsav are likely, and the other Amayroyim are quoting this can hold that the Chacham are moed. Now let's go back to discuss what these other cases are. So we had a couple of cases. There was Eidus Bechor. Eidus Bechor is a machlokes Rashi and Tosfos what it is. According to Rashi, what Eidus Bechor means, the halach is if someone has a Bechor born to him, it's a carbon, it's kodesh even nowadays. And it has to be watched. Now, what happens if this animal gets a mum? Then it loses its kedusha and it's just given to the kohen and it's chulam. So what would happen if a Yisrael had a Bechor and he didn't want to deal with it, so he picked his friendly neighborhood kohen, says, here, you deal with it. Now the kohen has every incentive in the world to inflict a mum upon this animal, because if the animal doesn't have a mum, it's a major pain in the neck for him dealing with kachim. The moment it gets a mum, now it's his animal, free and clear. So therefore, kohen has a high incentive to actually put a mum in, which is a big avera. Therefore, if a kohen comes to the Rav and he says, oh, this animal, which is a Bechor, has a mum, we don't believe him. We don't believe him that, of course, the mum is a mum, it speaks for itself. We don't believe him that he didn't do it. So therefore, he must bring Adam with him that can testify this mum that occurred, the kohen didn't do it, it occurred by itself. Now, how are you combining edus for such a thing? Because what if the Kohen brought the animal to the Rav and it had two different women? On one mum, you have one aid claiming that I saw this happen naturally. It was not done by the Kohen. And on the other mum, he had a different aid that said that the Kohen didn't do it. That's the case of Eidus Bechor, where these are two Eidim that are Nemon to say that the Kohen did not inflict the mum on the animal. It's speaking about two different women. That's how Rashi learns. Toshis learns much simpler. But Eidus Bechor means we know a father is Nemon to identify which one of his children is a Bechor. Eidus Bechor means there's Eidim who say we heard the father tell us that Reuven was the Bechor. So one Eid could say I heard the father say Reuven was a Bechor on one day, and another person say I heard the father say Reuven was a Bechor on a different day. So it's two Eidim who heard the father identify who the Bechor is on two different days. So that is what Eidus Bechor is. Eidus Karka, we already know. We have two Eidim. One Eid says I saw the transaction happen on Sunday. The other one said it happened on Monday. But they're both at least speaking about the same Karka. Eidus Chazaka, Rashi says, is if you have two Eidim, if you have one Eid that comes along and says, I saw Reuven was living in this property without anyone being Ma'ar. When did I see him? In January, in 2001, in 2002, and in 2003. Then another Eid came along and said, I also saw Reuven sitting in this property with no one being Ma'ar. But I saw him in 2004, 2005, and 2006. So there's two sets of Eidim. There's two Eidim. Each Eid is testifying on a different set of 3 years, but between both of them, they have a chazaka. So that was the case of Eid chazaka. Now, the Gemara wants to know, there's another example that the Mishnah gives, and that is v'chein shebeben v'shebevas. So for Gemara, my v'chein shebeben v'shebevas. What exactly does it mean that two Eidim seeing two different things can combine for Ben and Bas? Oh, shalom, welcome. If it's about testifying that a child became an adult and they saw Simonim, so one aid saw one simon begaba, which the art scroll touches as the back, but Rashi says ben kishrei etzba'iseh, between your fingers. So echad omer echas begaba, he saw one simon begaba, the echad omer echas bekreisa, and the other aid saw I saw one hair bekreisa. So can you combine those two eidim? Zok to Gemara, that can't be what it means, because hai chati dover v'chati eidusu. Each aid is not even saying an edus that this person is an adult. One hair means nothing. So therefore, sure, they shouldn't be able to be mitzaref, because you have no one claiming anything. Ella, the case of Sheva Ben and Sheva Bas, that the Brisa here is quoting, that you can combine two edim, is speaking when you had one aid saw two simonim begaba, the echad oimer shtayim bekreisa. The other aid saw two. So each aid saw a full indication that this person is an adult. But you don't have two eidim because each of the eidim are talking about a different sin. So Zok to Gemara, that in that case the eidim will also be mitzar. Amar Rabbi Yosef, I said in the name of Ula, halacha Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha, bein bekarkayos, bein b'metaltlin. So we had quoted Ula earlier, saying that we only pass like Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha by karkayos, but not by metaltlin. Rabbi Yosef said, I heard a different thing from Ula. What I heard over in the name of Ula is that we pass like Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha, both by karkayos and by metal. For Rabbanon the also b'mechuza amru. And the Rabbanon who came from Mechuzah, they told us, Amar Abzer b'shmei derav, b'karkoyis in avaloy b'metaltlin, which is how we originally quoted Ula, that we're only passing like Rabbi Shua ben Karcha by karkoyis, but not by metaltlin. Rav l'temei, Rav, who makes that distinction between karkoyis and metaltlin, and the only passing like Rabbi Shua ben Karcha by metaltlin is l'shitase. Damar Rav, hayda achar hayda. What does hayda achar hayda means? It means two of them came and say, we heard Reuven moida that he owed Shimon $100,000 on Sunday. Another aide came along and said, we heard Reuven moida that he owes Shimon $100,000 on Monday. Now that is not so schwer because that at least they're talking about the same monies, right? It's not like we shall have. So Rav holds by Hoidah Achar Hoidah, which really they're talking about the same thing, and Hoidah Achar Halva. So one aide comes along and says, I saw the transaction. On Sunday, I saw the transaction where Reuven borrowed $100,000 from Shimon. The other one came along and said, on Monday, I heard Reuven admit that he owed $100,000. That's also a starving, because both the $100,000 that each of these two Eidim are referring to are the same $100,000. Halva achar halva, if they each are claiming they saw a transaction, one on Sunday and one on Monday, or halva achar, the guy who came and said, I saw Sunday, Reuven was moida that he owed $100,000. Then the next day comes along and says, on Tuesday, I saw a transaction. So clearly, the Haidah of Sunday can't be on the same money that first became a loan on Tuesday. So there it's loy mitzdarfin. So Rav makes that distinction. If both Eidim are referring to the same choiv, which is a case of Haidah achar Haidah or Haidah achar halva, then they'll be mitzaref. But if they're talking about two different monies, because it's either halva achar halva or halva achar Haidah, there Rav holds the two Eidim would not be mitzaref. Ashkechei Rav Nachman by Yitzchak Rav Huna by Yeshua. Amalei, he asked, I don't understand. Ma'ishna halva achar halva. Halva achar halva, deloy. You're saying that wouldn't be an edus that could be combined. The money, the kachazi high, loy kachazi high. They're each talking about a different set of $100,000. But haidah achar nami, maybe a money the kamoida kamehai, loy moida kamehai. How do you know that they're both testifying about the same money? Yes, by halva achar halva, we know for sure it can't be the same halva. But by haidah achar how could you be so sure to combine these eidim? Maybe they're not even referring to the same $100,000. That's what Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak asked Rav Huna bar Yeshua. So Rav Huna bar Yeshua said, I have a simple answer for you. The Amar Lei, it's speaking that when the second aide heard the Haidah, the Amar Lei, L'hai Basra, when he was being moida to the second aide, he said, behind Mona, the idea like Kamach, this money that right now I'm admitting in front of you that I owe Shimon, I did the same thing yesterday. Nami kameploini. I actually did the same thing yesterday, and I'm referring to the same money as the one that I was talking about yesterday. So this second aid knows with clarity which money the person is being moed about. Okay, that makes the second aid good, but the first aid still might be talking about anything. Akati Basra Yoda, the second aid knows because he declared it, but Kama Lo Yoda. How does the first aid know that he's referring to the same amount? Because after he's moided to the second aid, the loiva went back to the first aid, and the hadar azul Amar Kama. Hi, money I do like Kama, the money that I was moided to yesterday. Today, I was moided the same $100,000 in front of the other aid. So Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak was very happy with his answer. By halva achar halva, the reason why Rav makes that distinction and holds an edus that could be combined is because in the testimony there was clarification that the haidah to aid number one was the same haidah as it was to aid number two. So therefore, Amar Lei Tanuch Daita Sheisnachtas Daiti. Rav Nachman just told Rav Huna bar Yeshua, you know what? You should relax. You calmed me down. You gave me a geschmack of teretz. So then Rav Huna bar Yeshua, who gave the teretz, turned around and slugged up his own teretz. Amar Lei Man Yechusa. Why do you think my teretz is a good teretz? The Rav of Item Rav Sheshes Shadabar Naga. They threw a wrench into my teretz, and they revealed that my teretz is not a valid teretz. You know why? Because if that's the case, then it's the same case as Haidah achar halva. Lav hainu Haidah achar halva. By Haidah achar halva, you'd have to explain it the same way. How do we know he's being moided on the same 100,000? It must be that it was clarified. So then, this is once you're talking about clarification, why do we need two cases? It's all one case. What's the extra chiddush in halva in Haidah achar Haidah? Amar Lei. So Rabbi Nachman says, you know what? You teased me. First you say a teretz and you slug it up. Now I know what people say about you. Now it explains to me what people say about you. There are misidikli. You chop a decal down, meaning you chop down my kasha, and then you stand it up again. So you teased me, you favored my kasha, and then you turned around and you slugged up your own teretz, and now I'm back to square one. It's good he didn't give him smicha, because I had to give him smicha, I wouldn't have to get it back. Zok the Gemara weiter. Nardoi Amri, bein hoida achar hoida, bein hoida achar halva, bein halva achar halva, and bein halva achar hoida mitzdarfos. Why is that? Command Reb Shua ben Karcha. That could only be true if you hold like Reb Shua ben Karcha, who holds that you can have two different ediyos on two different transactions. But if between the two of them we can prove that at least Reuben owes $100,000, you can combine them. Amar Yehuda, Edus hamakcheshes zu asu b'bedikos. We know when they interrogate Edim, there's two types of questions they ask. They ask chakiris and bedikas. Chakiris are important facts to establish Edus. What day, what time, where was it? And if you don't have your facts accurate, then the whole Edus falls apart. Bedikas are random questions. What color was his shirt? Now, it's possible that there'll be an inconsistency there. Is an inconsistency in what color the fellow's shirt was, would that damage the edus? If they're inconsistent in when it happened, if they're inconsistent how much money it was, if they're inconsistent in who it was and when it was, that would for sure be mevatel edus. But what if the only inconsistency was what color shirt the guy was wearing? So the halach is, Rabbi Yehuda said, Ksher b'din amamis. That would not disqualify edim that are coming to testify for din amamis, which is mashma that for din in the fashas, it would disqualify them. Amar Rabbi Mustafa Mil said to Rabbi Yehuda, is be'echad oimer ba'arniki shchoira, be'echad omer ba'arniki levon. One said the guy's wallet that was black, the other guy said the guy's wallet was white. In other words, things that are not material to the discussion. What if echad oimer mana shachar, be'echad omer mana loven, a blackened mana is not worth quite as much as a mana loven. So if one said mana shachar, one said mana loven, that is already more relevant to the edus, and clearly they're not talking about the same loan. Therefore, ein mitzdarfen, they wouldn't be mitzar. And even v'arnik yishchoira, no, so v'arnik yishchoira, b'dinin afashis loy, you just said for dinim mominus, these random issues don't count. We don't worry about them. Mashma by dinim afashis. If one said he was wearing a red shirt, and the other said he was wearing a green shirt, that would contradict the edus, and you wouldn't kill the guy. But that's not true. You would kill him anyway. You would accept edus if they were only inconsistent in the color of a shirt. Because if Yom Rab Chista, if one aide said he killed him with a sword, and the other aide said he killed him with a dagger, that's a very big inconsistency. This is not a congruent, parallel edus, and therefore we reject them. But if one aide said the murderer's clothing were black, and the other one said the murderer's clothing were white, we wouldn't consider that an inconsistency. So Rabbi Yehuda seems to indicate that would passel edus of nefashos, yet Rabbi Chista says it wouldn't passel edus of nefashos. Zok Gemara, there you go again. Gavra karamas. You ask a kasha from Rabbi Chista and Rabbi Yehuda. Let's say Rabbi Chista holds that would not be an inconsistency, and Rabbi Yehuda holds it would be an inconsistency. Nardoi, he said, Afilu echad omer mana shachar, v'echad omer mana lovan, even in the case where they're talking about different manas, where we said earlier would be a problem, the Nardoi paskin that mitzdarfa would work. Who holds inconsistencies are acceptable by Dina Mominis? Command Reb Shua ben Karcha. Frank Gemara, I think you're pushing Reb Shua ben Karcha a little bit farther, a little bit far. I don't know if Rabbi Shua ben Karcha would necessarily agree to such a stark inconsistency. If I said I saw something on Sunday and you said you saw something on Monday, we're two independent aides saying aidim, but we're not contradicting each other. But if we're talking about the same transaction and there's an inconsistency between what exactly was loaned, who said that Rabbi Shua ben Karcha would accept such an aidus? Miyama. Ella, you know who the Nardoi are referring to, who they're relying on? It can't be Rabbi Shua ben Karcha, because as we just indicated, Rabbi Shua ben Karcha wouldn't necessarily say that this would be a good edus. And who the Amar ki haitana, the time we learned, Amar Rabbi Shua ben Elazar, lenechloku beishamai u'beisil, beishamai beisil, had a machlokes when there was an inconsistency, where one said it was the loan was a mana, and one said the loan was a Messiah. Bishama says their testimonies don't add up. Basil says Lagabe Amana, they both agree, so it would add up. So there's a Tana who says Lanechlugu Bishama Basil al Sheiki Teyedim. If there are two separate sets of Edim, Sha'achas Emeris Messiah, one set of Edim said it was 200. The Achas Emeris Mana, there for sure we don't possibly Edim Sheyesh Bechlal Messiah. Alman Nechlugu. So where is there a machlokes b'shama and b'sil? Al kat achas. If it's only one set of Edom, one said it was a mona, and the other one said the transaction involved Messiah. There b'shama oimim nechlek eduson. The edus is not good. B'sil oimim, even in that case, where one aid said mona and one aid said Messiah, yesh bechlal Messiah mona. So this is who the Nardoi hold like. Even though one said a good mona, which is worth more, and the other one said a bad mona, which is worth less, it's no different than the one saying mona, one saying Messiah, which Beis Hillel holds you can combine them. What if one said Echadoy Merchav Shal Yain, Vechadoy Merchav Shal Shemen? Those are two completely different edusin. Havovda, there was actually a story in just such a case. They went to Rabami, he held that, listen, wine is not worth as much as oil, but they're both agreeing at least that the value of wine is old. But Lamais, it's two different ages. How does that work? So Gemara command Reb Shimon Elazar, like Reb Shimon Elazar, who says that these inconsistencies you still say Bechlal Mosai Mana. So Gemara, that's pushing it too far. Where the mana in the Messiah is the same mana. But in the case of Bechlal Messiah mana, because wine is worth less than oil, even the mana is different. It's wine, not oil. He never, it's not like one aide said it was actually a barrel of oil, and the other one said it was actually a barrel of wine. One said it was cash that has the value of a barrel of oil, and the other one said it was cash that had the value of wine. So that's a mamish case of mana and Messiah. What happens if Echadon Ebedut El Yoin? I saw the transaction occur on the second floor. The second aide said I saw this loan occur on the main level. And he felt that was not an important enough inconsistency, and he allowed the edus. Similar to a contradiction in a badika, not in the chakira. Dr. Gemara Viter. How do we know that when the dayan leaves, you shouldn't tell the Baldin, you know what, really I pass like you. But those two losers, they pass like the other guy, and what should I do? So Tana Rabbana, Minayin l'chashiyetzi lo yemeharini mizaka v'chaveri mechayvin, ava ma'asa, shechaveri rabu alai. Talmud Loimer, it says, Loiselech rochil ma'amecha. Don't say rechilus. You're saying bad against the other dayanim. V'yoimer, it also says, Hoylech rochil, someone who's hoylech rochil, he's a megala side. He's uncovering secrets that he's not allowed to be uncovering. Story time. There was a private discussion that happened 22 years ago, and he revealed something that happened 22 years ago. Who would think that should be a problem? Afke Rabami Mibei Midrasha. Rabami threw this Talmud out of this medrash. Amar Dain Gali Raja. This is a guy who spills secrets. He's not someone we should have in our medrash. Okay. Zok the Gemara Vayter. The Akuda board should hold us to the same standards. Kolzman, Shemevi Raya, Soishur Sedin. Even if when I'm standing in the Torah, I couldn't bring any proof, I didn't have any proof, and I was paskin against me. If I come back and find a star and find some proof, we'll reopen the case. Kolzman Shemevi Raya, Soishur Sedin. Omru Loi, what if Bezdin told him, listen here, pal, now is the time. We're giving you 30 days. Any evidence that you think you have, gather it. Because now we're paskening, don't come back to us later.
They wait 30 days before
they can give him 30 days. He said, I need to assemble, I have rights, I have Adim, but I need to get him here.
Not after you. No, it says here even after the verdict has been issued.
That's the first shita of the Mishnah. In Stama verdict, you can bring it forever. But what if during the Torah they told him we're giving you 30 days? Get it now. Now's the time to bring it. So if they gave him a time limit, then that time limit expires, he can't present evidence anymore. Amar Reb Shimon Gamliel. Reb Shimon Gamliel says, I don't understand. Why not? My yasazeh shaloi matzah b'sach shloishim u'matzah lachar shloishim. What did this guy do wrong? He couldn't find Adam within 30 days. He found it later. Well, who made up this arbitrary number of 30 days that my time expires? I should be able to bring whenever. What about Amar lehava Adam? They told him bring Adam. The Amar ainly Adam says, you know what? I don't have Adam. I'm sorry, I don't have Adam. Amar havi raya. So they bring him a raya. They told the building, bring a raya, bring a star or something. The Amar, and he admitted, ainly raya. I have no raya at all. And they passed it against him. And then he comes back. He found that he dug up Adam. So now we're close. Maybe he fabricated those Adam, or he fabricated a star. We will not recognize that. Why, Zok Rashi? Amar ainly. He already said I don't have. And therefore, we're afraid either he forged a star or he paid Adam. Amar Reb Shimon Gamliel again comes to his aid. My yasazeh he didn't know that he had Adam. He didn't know that somebody witnessed the event. What should he do? And now he found them. Why would you disqualify him for that? Or he forgot that he had a star. Now we just presented two machloikesin between Reb Shimon ben Gamliel and the Tanakama in Hilchos Raya, right? So let's label these two discussions as Raya Rishona. The first Raya, where they gave him 30 days, and the second Raya, where he admitted that he doesn't have a Raya, and then he fabricated one later. This second case that we just learned is called Ra'aya Achroina. And we're soon going to learn that we always pass like Reb Shimon Gamliel, except for three cases: Arev Tzidan and Raya Achroina. This is the famous Raya Achroina that we always run into all over Shas when the Gemara says that wherever Reb Shimon Gamliel says something in our Mishnah, Halacha Gemoisoi, puts me Arev Tzidan v'Raya Achroina. This is the Raya Achroina, the second machlokes regarding Raya that Reb Shimon ben Gamliel took a stand. Now we have the final case of the Mishnah. Rosh Mischayev B'din. What if he saw that it wasn't looking good for him? His din Torah was not going the right way. V'yamar, and he said, Kirvu ploini v'yoidini. Bring me these people. They'll say Edus for me. He's not claiming that I didn't know about them and I just found them. It's Ke'ilah, I always knew about them, but I never presented them. But now that I see things are looking bad for me, now suddenly I want to bring them. Or he pulled out of his knapsack, his gartel, Rashi says. He pulled out his gartel, he pulled up the star, then I raised Edom Klum. Because that's clearly indicating that he prepared these false Edom, but he didn't want to use them if he didn't have to. And at the last minute, when he sees it's not looking good, then he pulls them out. You should have brought them earlier. If you say, I just found, I didn't know, that's one thing. But here, he just pulled them out. He knew that they were there, and he didn't present them until now. That's too suspect. Zok the Heilige Gemara. Amar Rabba bar Huda. Halacha Reb Shimon ben Gamliel. We pass like Reb Shimon ben Gamliel. Which Reb Shimon ben Gamliel do we pass like? We'll talk about the first one, where even though they gave me 30 days, I could bring it later. V'yamar Rabba bar Huna, ein halacha k'divrei chachamim. Frank the Gemara, why would Rabba bar Huna need to tell me ein halacha k'divrei chachamim if we already said halacha Reb Shimon Gamliel? By definition, that means ein halacha k'divrei chachamim. Shita. Even though halacha Reb Shimon Gamliel, mele yadana, the ein halacha k'chachamim. Zok the Gemara, no. Ma'u detema hanimi l'chatchila. I would have thought that l'chatchila you should paskin like Reb Shimon ben Gamliel and let it be Geraya. But the evidence, what if Bezin wrongfully paskin like the Rabbanon and refused to accept the raya and paskin without it? Maybe Shaper Dama, you could leave the psak the way it is and not accept the Edom. Kamash Londi Ovid Madrinale. You have to open up the case again and allow him to present those Edom. Now the second case. Now it's a case of raya achroin. Amalei Havi Edom. Reb Shimon Gamliel. Rabbi bar Huna Rabbi Yochanan. Halacha k'divrei chachamim. You see here, we don't say halacha like Reb Shimon Gamliel. The Rabbi bar Huna Rabbi Yochanan ain't halacha like Reb Shimon Gamliel. So the same question as before. Pshita. Even though Amar halacha k'divrei chachamim, memele yodana ain't halacha like Reb Shimon Gamliel. Hakamash malam the be'ahahi ain't halacha like Reb Shimon Gamliel. Over here only. This is the only case where we don't pass like Reb Shimon Gamliel. Habachulu. Every other place in Mishnah is halacha like Reb Shimon Gamliel. This will tell us that our Mishnah is arguing with the following svara that's often quoted. But if you're going to learn Hakamash Malon, so then the halacha will be like Reb Shimon ben Gamliel by Arav and Sidon as well. And this member says the halacha is not like him. in 3 places. But if you're going to say that our Mishnah is telling you Allah because Dafka over here, but everywhere else we pass like Shimon Gamliel, that would be arguing on who we pass like in Arev and who we pass like in Sidon. Or if we just learned in the end of Bava Basra, if there's an Arev, who does the Baldin, who does the Malva collect from first? Can he go straight to the Arev, or must he first try to collect from the Loiva? Hahu Yanuka, there was this young child under Bar Mitzvah, the Tavu Ladina Kamed Rabna. They summoned him to Bezdin in front of Rav Nachman. Amalei Islach Sahadi. They asked him, do you have Adam to prove your point? Amalei Lo. He said, I don't. Islach Raya. Do you have any other proof? Amalei Lo. So Rav Nachman treated him like any adult. You don't have any rayas. Chayver Rav Nachman. Nachman was machayvim. Have a kabachi basel. He was crying. He was crying. He was just slaughtered in court. Shamu Hanachinchi. There were people who heard him that he was crying, so they said, Kint, what's wrong? And he told them, I lost the entire because I didn't have riots. Amrlei, Anan Yadinan B'midl Da'avach. We knew about your father's affairs. We were familiar with your father's affairs. And Amr Rab Nachman, in such a case, Baha Afilu Rabbanan Moidu, the Yenuka B'midl Da'avula Yada. There, even the Rabbanan who normally don't accept testimony, rayas, edim that come after the fact, but in a case of a young child who lost his father, the child is not expected to know what his father would have available, what resources his father would have available, and therefore, since there were other people who only discovered later after the court was paskin that there are some type of rayas, avada, we will open the case up again because it's not like it looks bad that the child was fabricating. The child is not expected to know. There's a whole trial. How was Rav Nachman able to pattern for a child anyway? Don't you say that you don't ever take money from Nichsi Yisayimim unless Ribis or Chalasan? So that's Tosfos' kasha. So Tosfos says not everybody holds like that. Tosfos says, last later Rav Nachman Hadarminan in Niskakan Nichsi Yisayimim Elam Ken Ribis Chalasan. He holds you could collect from Yosim. That's why he did it. Ha'itza, there was a woman, the Novik Shtar Metusa Yoda. She was not the Malva, the Loiva. A Malva and a Loiva both agreed that she should hold the star because she was reliable. Amr Lei, so she said, Yodana v'hai star de Pariyahav. She said, I know this star that I have is paid up. Hemna Rab Nachman. Rab Nachman believed her and said that the Loiva does not have to pay the Malva. Amr Lei Rab Nachman, come on. Why are you paskening and trusting her testimony? It must be like Rebbe, the Amr Oishes Niknas b'Mesira. Since you gave her the star, it's as if she's completely in control of the halva. It's like a cherova. It's like the malva assigned the halva to her, and therefore she could be moichelet. So if she could be moichelet, she could also be believed to say that it's paid off. Amalei said, no, not necessarily. Shiny hacha, the boys say. Even if Isis is not Niklas from Masira, and she's merely an independent third party, she's believed to say that it was paid off. You know why? Because she could have destroyed the star. So it's biada to enforce what her testimony is, therefore she's never. Ikudamri, there's another version of how the story went down, that Loihim Rab Nachman. Rab Nachman did not trust her to say it was Perua, and he was still going to collect from the Loiva. Amalei Rab Nachman. Rab asked Rab Nachman, why not? Doesn't she have a strong nemonis? Because if she wanted to enforce her opinion, she would just destroy the star. So Hilchach Malo L'Shaker, why would she lie? She could just destroy the star. Dr. Mara, no, she couldn't. You know why? Kivan the Ischazik Bevedina. Rashi says there was already a hempik written on it. Bezdin wrote this is a legit star. That's a Maisa Bezdin. With Amigo, you can't just undo a Maisa Bezdin. Taisus learns more than that. We knew that she got that star. So therefore she can't deny its existence. So therefore, Iboy culture Loyamrina. And therefore Reb Nachman didn't trust her on saying that the star was proven. Esei Rabbi Reb Nachman. Simpoin Sheyesh Shalav Edim. Simpoin is a star that has a shoiver written on it. So there's a shayla in the Rishonim. Are we speaking about a separate receipt that was signed that the loiva paid back to Malva, or is it written on the star itself that it was paid off? And there was Aiden there. Yiskayim b'choismov. If you could be mekayim the star with choismov, then you will still collect. Ein olav Edim. But if there's no Edim, we have to look at the Bach. Ein olav Edim v'yoytzei mitachas yidei shlish. And this star is in the hands of a third, similar to that woman who was holding the star as a third party. Oy Sheyotza Acher Chitim Stories. Oh, so I'm sorry. The case that I was talking about is a standalone, independent shover. Now the Gemara is bringing a case where the shover was written right there on the star. They're kosher. They're for sure. The shlish is trusted to say it was paid. Or if the shover was written right on the star, so now the malva doesn't have the star anymore, that also is a shover that would be believed. But if it was just a standalone shover, if there weren't edim on it that were mekuyam, we wouldn't trust the receipt. But whatever the case is, almost shlish mehemen. You see that by yoytzim mitaxi de shlish, we trust the shlish. So how come Reb Nachman didn't trust this woman who was a shlish? Here you see a brisa that you do trust the shlish. In fact, if the star is in the hands of a third party and he says this star is paid off, you trust that person, and the malva can no longer collect from the light. Rabdimi said, "Apsak." We're going to have to see who it aligns with, Reb Shimon ben Gamliel or the Rabbanan. He said, you can always bring rayas and back and forth. Ad sheyistatem tainoisov, which Rashi explains as follows: Ad sheyistatem tainoisov mashma she'amar bevezdin ainli lo edim v'lo raya. Until he openly declares, "I am out of any evidence. I have nothing left." So he can keep on coming back forever and ever until he admits this is the end of the line. The Chazer v'Amar, after he said this is the end of the line, he said, "Kirvu ploni uploni choymu zemanim sham." Then he called people, and it was obvious that he knew that they were there the whole time. U'mitchila soisim tainoisav loy mer'enli. So first he said, "I don't have any more," and then he said, "Oh yeah, I have edim." So it's very suspect. So the halacha is he can continue to bring actually stop him tainoisav until he says, "I have no more," and then v'yomer kirvu ploni uploni veidumi. So frankly, Gemara, this is somewhat contradictory. Hagufa kasha. Amrat yistatem tanoisa. If you say yistatem tanoisa, meaning that he can no longer bring asan l'Rabbanan, that would sound like he holds like to Rabbanan that yistatem tanoisa, meaning he can no longer bring, even if it doesn't look suspect. Once he says, I don't have, which is how the Rabbanan pass in their Mishnah. The other Amrat kirvu is ploni v'deini, which means we're following Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel. Aton l'Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel. So it's a steer. It's a steer in how we understand this Mishnah. Let's see Rashi. Haguvakasha. Yistatim tanoisiv is mashma mikivan sheyistamu shuv ein maybe raya. Once he finishes with his rise, he can't bring any more. Even if you found the machashman, karabanan, and then vodakatani kirvu the mashma the haihu the loy maisi. Only if it was obvious that they were there the whole time, but he didn't want to bring them out, and now when he's stuck, he wants to bring them out. That's the only type of raya that we don't let him bring. You know why? Even if Reb Shimon Gamliel holds you can't do that. That looks too suspect. Maybe Maisi, Reb Shimon. So Minei Ubei in this psak, it seems to be contradictory. Zok to Gemara, the Chitem Ekula Reb Shimon ben Gamliel. And if you want to say no, this brisa is possibly Reb Shimon ben Gamliel, that you can continue to bring edus until it looks sketchy, and the Parisha come a farish, and maybe the brisa is just explaining itself. My achi yistatim tanoisav. What do we mean when we say you can continue to bring Adam and Rayas until he runs out? It means achi yoimer kirvu ploni veiduni. Means you can bring Rayas until he brings a Raya that we knew he always had waiting in the background. Maybe that's what this brisa means. So tomorrow it can, because the Rabbi Babachana said in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, Kol mokim sheshona Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel b'Mishnah seinu halacha k'moisei. And this is a case of Raya Achroina. This is Mamish that case. So you don't pass like Shimon Gamliel. So why would we say that this price is passing like Shimon Gamliel? We don't pass like Shimon ben Gamliel. Ella, he also have Shmuel by Huda, Rabbi Yochanan, La'olam, maybe Raya v'soiser. He can continue to bring Rayas again and again, Achi yistatem tainoisov, until he runs out of tainis. V'yoim ruloi, and they'll tell him, Have Adam, bring Adam. The Omer, and they'll say, Ainli Adam, I don't have any more Adam. Have Raya, bring a Raya. The Omer, Ainli Raya, I have no more Rayas. That's when he can't bring any more. Avo bo Adam b'din sayam. But if Adam showed up in b'din sayam, which he could not have possibly known were around at the time, Oishaya, this guy shall oviv mufkedes biaracher. or the father had shtoris that he didn't know that we're in a safety deposit box somewhere that he didn't know about, there harezeh maybe raya v'soiser, he can continue to bring rayas because those don't look suspect. There's no way that he could have known that. Gavalti. Zog to Gemara Vayter. Ki aser avdimi amar b'yoichanam. Hatoichiv es chaver bedin. What if someone is a little bit of a a guy who loves to go to court? What there's a word for that? He's a litigant type of guy. He's a
litigious, I think.
Litigious. He's a litigious guy. Okay. I might not know the word, but at least I know there is such a word. That's it. So one said, let's go over here to this local bezin. No. I want to go with a real prozar. The law is the loiva can force the malva to go to the makom avad. Amar the fun of Belazar, how could you say that? You're going to make the malva spend the money to collect the money to schlep to wherever the makom avad is. That's not fair. If a malva goes to a loiva and says, I'm taking you to the local dintayra, then the loiva cannot say, I want to go to a different bezin. The loiva is forced to go to the local dintayra because of eved loiva lish malva. There are two people that are fighting against each other and they're having a dintayra. One said, let's go to the local bezin. You force him v'don v'irai, meaning the malva can force the loiva to come to the local bezin. What if the bezin themselves had an uncertainty that they needed to consult with the larger bezin? Then bezin will write it. What if the loser of a dintayra says, I don't want to accept your oral psak, I want your psak in writing? So he has a right to demand that. He has a right to demand that. What about a Yavama who wants her Yavim, her brother-in-law, to do Yibam? He doesn't have to come to her. She has to go to him. Latira. The Yavama Latira. At Kama, up until what point does he have to go? Amarbami afilu mitferya u'tzipuri. Even from Tveria to Tzipure, so Rashi. What's the significance of that? Aval pisha yeshivas Tveria gedoyla mishal Tzipure halach achar v'Tzipure. In other words, even if he's schlepping her from a more established bezin to a shvacher bezin, as the Yovim, he has that right. Amar Rav Kana, Mikra, why does he have that right? It says v'karu loy ziknei iroi. The zakanim of his city is the one who calls to him to do the chalitza process, and therefore we learn ziknei iroi v'zoi ziknei ira. He has the right to do everything in his city. He doesn't have to travel. Amar Meimer, hilchazol halach is koifin oisoi v'yelech l'makom havad. The loiva can force the malva to go to the main best. Don't we learn from a Belazar that you force the loiva to go to the local bezin? Look, tomorrow, if the loiva tells the malva, I want to go out of the city, the malva can force the loiva to go local. But if the malva wants to go out of the city, eved loiva lish malva. So the malva has the right to pick the bezin. He can pick a local bezin, and he can force the loiva to go to the local bezin, or he can pick the makom avad and force the loiva to go there as well. They sent to Mar Ukva and they called Mar Ukva a very big compliment. L'dezivlei kivar basya, the person whose face shines like the son of Basya, referring to Moshe Rabbeinu. So they sent to Mar Ukva and they said, we look at you, you shine like Moshe Rabbeinu. Shalom, shalom aleichem. Now the Bezdin of Eretz Yisrael sent the following message to Mar Ukva. Ukva Nabavli. There's a fellow whose name is Ukva Nabavli. Kabel Kadmona Yirmiyah Achi. He came to complain in front of us. And what did he complain about? Yirmiyah Achi. What did Yirmiyah Achi do? Hever Elias Aderech. And there's different pshat in Rashi what it is that he complained about. There are those who say that he's complaining that Yirmiyah was misarisim, a horrible physical attack. The other people learn that he just didn't treat me properly, and it was about the Mominus. But whatever it is, the Bezdin in Yerushalayim sent in Israel sent to the Bezdin Bavel. this fellow is a problem. And therefore, the Amalei tell him, they're telling the Bezdin they're telling Ukva's Bezdin, Hisiua, force him, V'yira Panenu B'Tveria, and first force him, and then we'll deal with it. And they said, V'yira Panenu B'Tveria, we want to see him in Tveria. Where do they want this to be adjudicated? Do they want Ukva to adjudicate, or do they want him to dispatch them to Tveria? Amrit Amruloi, Almo Dainu Atun, Amruloi. Seems to indicate that you're going to have to adjudicate this case. And then they continued saying, that means they're instructing Mar Ukva to send this Din Torah to Eretz Yisrael. So what is the message? Elahachi Kamri. This is what they said. Amrulai Dainu Atum. First, you paskin. They told Mar Ukva, you paskin. Eat size. If he accepts your psak and he complies, perfect. If he doesn't want to comply, then he compel him, the Europe Tveria, make him come up to Tveria to the best. Rav Ashi Amar, you know why they were telling him to send this to Bavel, to send this to Eretz Yisrael, and they never meant that he should adjudicate in Bavel? Because Dine Knossos have it. It was a discussion of a Knas. In Bavel, they cannot paskin on Dine Knossos, because we learned in order to paskin on Dine Knossos, you have to have smicha, and we learned that there's no smicha in Bavel. So you have to go to a bezin in Eretz Yisrael. So why did they send this to him? It made it sound a little bit like they want him to adjudicate. It's kedei covered the Mar Ukva. Out of respect for Mar Ukva, they said, yeah, maybe you should adjudicate, so it should look like they respect him, but really they needed him to be sent to Eretz Yisrael. Baruch Hashem, we were zeicha to finish finally the third parak. Tomorrow we're going to learn Daf Lamed Beis Echadin Imam. Everyone should have an awesome Shabbos.